Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me again for the live Q&A session here on my channel. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I'm a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and my channel is dedicated to those of you just getting started out in this wonderful world of voiceover and audiobook narration. And through my channel, I share with you tips, tricks, techniques, things that I do every day in my own voiceover business, and then we get together in these weekly chats to talk about a topic or two, or 5. We'll see. If you're not new here, then you know every week we have a new poll, and today's poll is, have you experienced any of the choices on ACX? And looking at the poll, because we are talking about ACX today, and I just want to say, we're not here to get down, be Debbie Downers about ACX. ACX is a wonderful platform, and we'll get more into what it is, where you can find it, all the things. We're just here to raise awareness of perhaps what not to do and what to do, what you should be doing on ACX. And in the attempt to give the people watching an idea of what to look out for, how to handle it, that sort of thing. So we're not here to bash on ACX. We are here to just talk about the do's and don'ts, so you could have a wonderful experience and know how to handle things. Back to the poll. So if you haven't casted your vote yet, do that now. It looks like we have so far about 22 votes. And again, have you experienced any of these on ACX? 59% of you said title removed after audition. And what I mean by that is you didn't get the rejection letter. You didn't get the, hey, you know, sorry, there's more fish in the sea, you weren't selected sort of thing. I mean, the title was just straight removed. It's gone after you submitted an audition. It happens. And we can talk about perhaps why that happened. 5% of you said title removed during production. That's always a tough one. It doesn't happen as often, but it does, and we'll explain why. 14% of you said that you received an offer to narrate an audiobook, but there was no listing on Amazon. And again, we'll explain why that happens. And then 23% of you said title written by AI. Now, I have experienced all of these. And I know I'm asking you to pick just one, and it's hard because you've probably experienced more than one of these. But just pick one. Okay. So if the title was removed after you submitted an audition, It could be that the author has decided to go elsewhere with their audiobook. It could mean that they had one particular narrator in mind, and that narrator was on ACX, and that solicitation for audition was only open for that specific person. Now, the author probably should have noted that in the audition, that this was only a listing available for one person to audition to, but sometimes they don't. So there could be really a number of reasons why this happens. Another reason could be that perhaps the ACX team decided that this book was not legitimate. That's always a factor, but what I want to impress upon you is that it's not always a negative. It's not always like there's a scam happening. It's a ne'er-do-well and I dodged a bullet. That's not always the case. You have to keep in mind that ACX is a platform where it makes it very easy for authors and narrators to come together to produce audiobooks, right? It's very easy to list your book with Amazon because it is a sister company of Amazon. It's a platform that's very easily accessible for either party. And the ACX team is constantly looking for ways to improve the experience for both sides. So maybe if they found that there was something going on with the title that was not jiving, they're going to remove it. So it's a good thing. If the title is removed during production, I would have to think it's more than likely the latter, right? It's probably the ACX team finding that this is not a legitimate listing. It doesn't belong to the person who's claiming it, something of that nature. And in that case, then you probably did dodge a bullet. The offer but no listing on Amazon, I'm actually hearing this question a lot. Because this platform makes it so easy for authors and narrators to get together to produce audiobooks, there are authors who, for whatever reason, don't want to use Audible as a audiobook distribution platform, and perhaps they want to do something else with their audiobook. Remember that ACX, Audible, is just one audiobook distribution platform. There are lots of them. So if the author has no listing on Amazon, it could very well be that maybe they don't want their book on Amazon just yet, or maybe at all, for whatever reason. Maybe they just want to be at Barnes & Noble. Maybe they want to release the book and in all of its versions, meaning print, ebook, and audiobook versions all at the same time, right? Or maybe they just want to go to Findaway, or maybe they just want to go, make it like a membership sort of a thing on YouTube to access the book. Who knows? But they came to ACX knowing that there was a wide assortment of narrators there, and they're reaching out to see if you want to produce their audiobook. Now, if that happened, or when that happens for me, I will still do my due diligence. If you've gotten to searching for the book on Amazon and it's not on Amazon, honestly, I don't know how they would have even gotten it on ACX, because it's just but it happens. But anyway, when that does happen, I would still research the user or the author. I would ask to see the manuscript, as always, and I always recommend that you do this before you commit to producing an audiobook on any platform. Ask to see the manuscript before you agree to it, because it's happened quite a few times where the word count was misrepresented, and sometimes not always on purpose. Sometimes a 0 or a digit just gets omitted by, we've all done it. So you want to verify the word count. You want to skim through the audiobook contents to make sure that you're comfortable with the content, because what could be described to you as, just as an example, as a vanilla romance could be 50 Shades of Grey, right? In your definition. So you want to make sure that you're comfortable with the content, and you also just want to skim through and make sure that it's You know, maybe there's accents that some of the characters speak that you cannot sustain through an entire book, right? So there's a lot of different reasons why you would want to look through the manuscript first before agreeing to it. But first and foremost, you want to make sure that you're verifying the word count and that you're comfortable with the contents. So that could be a reason why, if you've received an offer from someone and the book isn't on Amazon, that doesn't immediately mean it's a scam. But you still want to do your due diligence and research the author and make sure that the book belongs to them. They are the author listed on it. And if not, ask the questions. It's okay to ask questions. It just shows that you're professional. I have a lot of people ask me all the time, well, what do I do in this situation? The names don't match up. Ask them. Ask them, say, hey, you know, if Jane Doe is the listed author on the manuscript and the person contacting you is Bill Smith, then ask them, does Jane Doe know that we are producing this audiobook? Do we have permission from Jane Doe? And just leave it open-ended and see what they say, right? It could be their wife's book. It could be an indie publisher. It could be maybe a pen name. I mean, who knows? But then do your due diligence and make sure that they are a legitimate person. And even in some cases, I've had people reach out to the author directly. Like if someone sent you an offer on ACX and the names didn't match up, you Google search the author, find the author's webpage, and then submit a contact form to ask that author, hey, do you know that your audiobook is being is open for auditions on ACX to produce an audiobook, and see what they say. They'll say, yep, that's me. Great to meet you. Or they might say, no, that's not me. Thank you for letting me know. And that could, potentially save that author from having their information taken. So it's not a bad thing. Ask those questions. Do that research. It's not forbidden. You can do that. Ask the questions. And then the last option is the title is written by AI. And you're going to see a lot more of this until it becomes, I don't want to say, I feel at some point it's going to be restricted, or it's going to have to be, it's going to have some sort of a stamp on it saying this is an AI written title. Or going the other way, maybe these audiobook distributors will go, we're not accepting stuff that's written by AI or bolstered by AI. Because I find a lot of, especially self-published authors, as we know, the bigger the book, the more you can charge for it. So unfortunately, I think some of the authors are getting AI assistance in writing these books, meaning they could have a great idea, but then maybe they're not happy with the final word count, so they stick the content into AI and ask it to fill it out, to expand it. But I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go, but yeah, I've experienced all of these myself, and I'm still on ACX, still doing business through ACX. It's just something to be cognizant of. It's just, nature of the beast, I suppose. If you're in any kind of business, you're going to have new hurdles that you're, presented with. It's in knowing how to handle them. What they are and how to handle them is what is important. So another important reason why we have these conversations is to stay on top of these things and know that they're out there, right? All right, we have a lot of comments. So if you have a question about ACX, or if you have an experience you'd like to share, positive or negative, then we can talk about it here in the comments. Tips. If you have any tips for any new narrators out there, then please leave them in the comments. Or if you just want to say hi, put it in the comments. All right, who was first in? Of course, Caesar. Hey, Caesar, how you doing? Caesar says, oh, hi, Angela. I'm guessing AI authored material is the most common issue with ACX. That, and perhaps the old you're inheriting millions scam. Both are quite prevalent, unfortunately. I don't see any of the you're inheriting millions. I don't see any of that on ACX. What I typically see in my message box are either questions from authors or just correspondence from authors or other users, or I'll get solicitations for production services or something like that on ACX. I haven't got any of the, I'm a Saudi prince and I want to marry you kind of things on ACX, thankfully. These days I filter out and only audition for works that have a fairly decent sales ranking on Amazon. That at least guarantees I'm reading something that is well received, if anything. And that's always a good rule of thumb, especially if you're looking at royalty share books or royalty share plus. You want to look for, not to dissuade you from like debut authors, but you at least want to see that they have a social media following, that they're hyping up the book. Perhaps they're talking about the book. People are being made aware that this book is being created, right? You want to see that they have some sort of a marketing ability, that they're present and that they're focused on promoting this book. And then preferably you want to see that it's, like Caesar said, it's being received well. It's got good ratings. It's selling well. Those sorts of things. But if you're looking at straight per finished hour for the pay type, then those things don't really matter. But of course, read through the content if you can, skim through the manuscript if you can prior to accepting the contract, just to make sure that you're comfortable with the content. I can't stress that enough. And then also verify that word count, especially for per finished hour rate books, because that's when it matters, right? That said, hello everyone. Wanted to share that my neighbors have sold all of their roosters. Wow. It's one less thing for you to have to worry about noise-wise. I may consider shifting my schedule to something less zombifying. Well, that's good. That's good for you, Caesar. Ken P is here. Hey, Ken. Caesar, did they become soup? Maybe I should try zombie hours. At least then the local reconstruction noise not an issue. And the crows are asleep and the yahoos with loud cars and lawnmowers. Yeah, I know a lot of narrators who narrate late at night just for that reason. Because no one is typically out, weed whacking or lawn mowing, late at night. And it's usually quieter on the street for the most part. Construction, yeah. Ken then says, I did get and accepted my first 2 offers on a couple small royalty share books, working on the first one, and still waiting for the script for the second. Oh, that's good. I would say if they don't get you the script soon and you're emailing them, you could also try to get ACX involved and see if they can help mitigate that. But if not, then just make the author aware that obviously, you're not going to be able to adhere to the contract due dates if you don't have a script to narrate from, or at least start to prep, right? So just make sure you have all of that correspondence through ACX so they can see and mitigate that. Caesar then says to Ken, it's likely they have. I got to check the nearby restaurants to see if they have a rooster on the menu. All right, you guys. Let's get down to, here we go, David. Hey, David. Hello from Hamilton, Ontario. Gary Micheloni is here. Hey, Gary. My frustration is the author confusing an audiobook with a Fiverr gig. Often the offer has checkpoint due in 3 days and final in a week. ACX should allow narrator to amend terms before accepting. I think what ACX has is a template for a contract. This is what I think. It's just a template, and they're encouraged to go in there and modify the dates. But perhaps that most authors don't understand, because maybe this is their first time, that they don't understand that audiobooks do take time. They take, more often than not, more than a week. So you don't really need to amend the contract as long as there's conversation with the author asking for more time and explaining why, because audiobooks do take a lot more work and time. Then as long as you have that correspondence within ACX, then that serves as a amended contract. You don't have to adhere to those dates as long as you both agree on more time. So for example, if you got a contract that was due, the final product is due in a week, and in reality you need about 30 days, you can reach out to the author, explain the process of audiobook production, and let them know that this in fact is going to take me 30 days when the contract says 7. I wouldn't take it as something done on purpose, that they need it that fast. More than likely they just didn't know, or they didn't know that they could change the contract or something of that nature. And as long as you both agree and it's written in ACX, so ACX can see the correspondence, it's fine. You don't need to amend the contract. Rustic Hillbilly is here. Good morning, good morning. I hope it's beautiful in Oregon today. Pamela's here. Good morning, Pamela. Hey, Jules. I got an offer from someone whose book is on Amazon, but not yet on ACX. But the big one I get is I do an audition and then the title is unlisted. Yeah, that happens. For a number of reasons, as I just outlined. It's I wouldn't necessarily knee-jerk and think that that's a scam, right? It could be for many reasons. Maybe they changed their mind. Maybe they realized that the book needed more editing, right? Maybe they needed another step in the book, in the manuscript editing or finalization finalization process before they wanted to have an audiobook version produced. Could be a number of reasons why. Yes, hit that like button. Do as Pamela says. Like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTubey things. I appreciate it. Helps my algos. Lisa says, good morning all. Good morning, Lisa. First book approved. Yay, and now live on Audible. Congratulations. That's a big achievement. I hope you're celebrating. Pretty quick turnaround from ACX of 11 days. Well, that's pretty good. I've been hearing that they're up to about 30 for the QA process, so 11 days is pretty good. Can't audition or record at the moment. Between houses, no studio. Back at it mid-August. So I'll binge watch Angela on YouTube for the next few weeks. Aw, that's awesome. Well, I have plenty of content. I have plenty of content. And I got to get back in the studio to make some more. I got to update some videos. If there's anything you want me to make a video specifically about, then let me know. Kat says, hi, everyone. Congrats, Lisa. Yes. It was awesome. Jean says, good morning from Oregon. Another Oregonian. Old Dog Nutrix says, hello, all. Hope you're doing well. So far, so good. Donnie, hey, Donnie. Donnie says, I have had multiple of these on ACX title removed and title written by an AI. Yeah, I am seeing those more and more often, too. It's, as we all know, AI is easily accessible. It's cheap, it's fast, but as we all know, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's good, right? That it's not the way to go. Because what's that saying? Cheap is not necessarily good, and good is not necessarily cheap, right? As we say before, as we have said before in some of these live chats regarding voiceover and AI, there's going to be the fast, cheap version, or there's going to be high quality voiceover, right? Fast, cheap AI, high quality voiceover. It's the same thing with books. And you can usually tell pretty quickly if the book is written by AI. What I have seen, just for those of you that are wondering how you can see, if you're reading through the book, and let's just say at the beginning of the chapter, there is a point made, right? There is, let's just say it's a self-help book, I need more coffee, self-help book. And the beginning of a chapter, there's a new point made, right? Which is going to be the basis or the topic for the remainder of the chapter. And as you go through that chapter, that same point is being made. It's just being recycled and regurgitated in different ways, but it's the same point over and over and over. More than likely, that book was bolstered by AI. So the author had some great ideas and information to share, but instead of just writing it, they stuck it into AI and wanted to bolster the word count a little bit. That's usually how you can tell. Donnie says, congratulations, Lisa. Rustic Hillbilly, congratulations. Yep, that's a big deal. I hope, Lisa, you're celebrating. Celebrate that. Old Dog New Trick says, my first and only completed ACX book fits into this category. Submitted it a while back and no movement. Author said he was working on something, but no movement. Well, as long as the author hasn't been removed or banned or anything like that, then, as we all know, I think at this stage in our lives that, life's sometimes. Other things get in the way. Perhaps maybe somebody got sick or, work became too tedious to sit and listen to hours of audiobook on end. Understandable, but I would just stay top of mind. I would keep messaging them. You can even get ACX involved to help mitigate, to push, perhaps to get this done. That's what I would do. Alicia's here. Hey, Alicia. Hey, everyone. Jean. Hi, Jean. Jean says, I've had way too many offers to audition for books that were not on Amazon or from authors I couldn't find. Yeah, if you can't find the author at all on social media, website, anything like that, then that would definitely raise a red flag for me. Because I would think if I wanted to call myself an author, that's a pretty big achievement. I would want to have social media profiles where, even if they were personal and not a business social media profile, I would want to shout that from the rooftops that, hey, I just achieved this big thing. I'm an author. I can call myself an author, right? Or have a website, at least like a free one-pager. I'm an author. That's a big deal. You think they'd want to celebrate that. So if you can't find them at all, then that would be a red flag for me. Sage is here. Hey, Sage. Hey, everyone. Just popped in to say hi. I have physical therapy this afternoon, so I can't stay. See my platinum groupies on Thursday. Yes, Sage, we'll see you then. Jules says, oh, I forgot I had an offer from Venture Nest Books this morning. I told them I'd do it for per finished hour, not royalty share. Good. And don't be afraid to do that. You're not stuck with whatever an author offers you. If, let's just say, in my place, what I do is I will take a royalty share book if it's maybe a couple of hours. I'll do a royalty share book. If it's something that's evergreen, it's selling well, I'll do a royalty share book in that instance. Anything above that is going to be royalty share plus up to, I'd say maybe 5 hours, royalty share plus or per finished hour. And then anything above 5 hours is definitely going to be per finished hour, because that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. A book that large is a lot of work. Unless, of course, it's like some, big name, big book, then maybe royalty share plus. But, it's a case by case, but that's a general rule of thumb for me. Yeah, Sage, we hope that recovery is going well. Masonry Construction says, kind of like the title being pulled during production. How about this? The author disappeared and never sent the MS. The manuscript? Maybe something happened. I've actually had that happen before. Somebody, it was around the time of COVID. I think a lot of this has happened where an author just completely disappeared, and then much later I got a message saying that, something tragic had happened during that big first COVID wave. So, sometimes things happen. And Tess brought the donuts. My girl brought a lot of donuts, but I did make it. Donnie says, I have had authors reach out to me and said I was in the running, and he took it down because there were so many auditions. Yeah. If you think about all of the social media posts that we've all seen at some point or another, right? Make $400 an hour using your voice and your PJs recording audiobooks with your iPhone. We all know that's clickbait, but at least at the very least, those kind of social media posts might have caught your attention and sparked your interest, but then you went about it the right way. You went into training, you got all the equipment, all the things. But I would think that some books are going to get a lot of auditions. They're going to get a lot of auditions. From an author's perspective, that's a lot to review. Right? If you think about the amount of auditions that an author probably gets on ACX, it's probably very overwhelming. I highly doubt that author is going to be able have the bandwidth even to sit and review all of those auditions that they get. Hundreds, I would think. So another reason, as soon as you see a book that you want to audition for it as soon as possible. You want to be one of the first 50. I don't even know if an author would listen to more than 50. That's a lot. That's a lot to keep track of. And on that same note, for those of you that are upset that you don't get feedback, I hear that a lot too, that the author didn't give me feedback, I didn't get, or you're asking the author for feedback on your audition. Don't expect them to. They're not obligated to. Most of the time, they probably won't have time to, unless you're in perhaps the top 10 and they're narrowing their choices down to 5 and then to 3 and then to 1. You might get feedback then. Some authors are great about that, but really, that's a big ask, right? Considering if they've got hundreds of auditions to review. That's a lot. Yeah, there should be an all of the above, but I'm limited to just 4. It's definitely all of the above for me. Cherry fritters. Oh, you remembered. Nicole, I love cherry fritters. They're so horrible for you, but they're so good. I can only have a few bites of one now. I can't eat a whole one. They're just too much. Tanya's here. Hey, Tanya. Evening all, dealing with an ACX author today who became quite snippy when I asked for the manuscript before accepting his offer. He'd also asked me to produce 2 books I hadn't auditioned for. I wonder why he wouldn't want to, because, and I've run into this too, when I've asked an author if I could see the manuscript before we went any further, there have been, I would say, 9.5 times out of 10. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it does. And I think the reason for that is the author is afraid that you're going to do something with it, right? So if you approach the conversation that in a way that is supportive, professional, and it's in the interest of making sure that I'm comfortable with the content before we get started, right? Or to see if I have any questions about your content. Or sometimes self-help books will have PDFs, or not PDFs, but images, graphs, charts, things like that. And that is the time where I will ask them, hey, are you going to include an accompanying PDF with your audiobook for these images, or how do you want me to approach that content? Because obviously you can't narrate graphs and charts, right? So those are the reasons, apart from, of course, verifying the word count and making sure that you're comfortable with the content. But things like that, you want to ask those questions up front so you know how to handle it. So, and if you're an author watching this, it's not a bad thing. If you think about your audiobook producer or your narrator, it's a team effort, right? It's a production team, right? You have this audiobook narrator who's going to bring life to your book and produce your audiobook in a way that you are happy with. It's got to be a collaboration. There's got to be trust. And unfortunately, I know that's easier said than done in this day and age, but if you have somebody that's got some experience, right? I mean, there's got to be a little bit of trust to produce this audiobook together, this collaboration. But I would have to wonder why they would get upset. Maybe, I mean, I'm not going to sell it. You know, I'm not going to do, I'm not in the business of, you know, I'm not in the business of upsetting my customers before they become my clients, right? It's kind of silly, but I get the concern. Masonry Construction says, question, if the book title is not listed on Amazon, how is the audiobook even allowed? A requirement of Audible is that there has to be an ebook on Amazon, right? To list a book, it has to be on Amazon. However, you can still get people creating accounts, because you can create an ACX account right from Amazon using your Amazon credentials. And then listing the book for auditions, yes, it would have to be on Amazon, but you can get an offer from someone direct into your message box if they find you in the the producers for hire section. They can send you an offer that way. Maybe, again, they want to release the book and everything all at the same time, so they're getting their ducks in a row before they do that. There could be a number of reasons why the book isn't yet listed on Amazon. Or maybe they just, again, don't want to. Maybe they only want it on Barnes & Noble. Or they only want it in their online, world. I mean, there could be a number of reasons for that. But you're right, you can't list a book unless it is already on Amazon. But they can still send you an offer if their book isn't on Amazon. Donnie says, I had gotten an AI book for my first book. The same person People got another one of our platinum members for his first book. So why are you upset? Same person got another one of them? Because it's an AI book? I mean, Tanya says, that author thought I was trying to take things off platform. Oh, but since it was royalty share, I don't see how that would have benefited. I mean, if it's their first time on ACX, there could be things that, there's information overload doing something for the first time. And, sometimes things don't immediately click. And that's where you, as the professional, come in to explain, to calm, to soothe, to encourage. Paul says, good day, Angela et al. Quick check of my audition log spreadsheet reveals the following. Auditions submitted, 265 auditions, removed by author, 55, almost 21%. It's really common. Again, could be a number of reasons. Maybe they changed their mind. Maybe this whole process was overwhelming and they had no idea how time-consuming it was going to be, that they would just throw their, audition request out there and it would be just easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But maybe they just didn't have the bandwidth to deal with it at that time. I would imagine it's overwhelming. Reading Time with Poppy says, starting ACX is almost to the top of my to-do list. I've removed a couple of other things from the list because they were becoming clutter. And sometimes we just have to narrow our focus. That's not a bad thing. There is a lot in this business of voice acting, audiobook narration, and running a business, right? There's a lot of different avenues and paths and platforms, and there's a lot. And sometimes just narrowing that focus is not a bad thing. Just kind of whittling out things that aren't working and just focus on the things that are. Tanya says there is also an author at the moment who is insisting on narrators with at least 10 books on Audible to be able to audition. I assume they've been burned in the past somehow. That sure sounds like it. Sure sounds like it. Hey, really quick, let's get back to the poll because I'm just clicking buttons. Now I lost my place. Oh no. Hold on. Come on, StreamYard, help me out. All right. If we undo this and do this. So going back to the poll, now we have 35 votes. So have you experienced any of these on ACX? I'm just curious. 60. So the vast majority of you said title or moved after audition. And of course, the generic email you get from ACX doesn't go into any more detail. It's really ultimately none of our business why they removed the title, but it could be for a number of reasons. 3% of you said title removed during production. I think that would be the worst of all of these, is because you're already invested. You have already invested time and effort into producing the audiobook just to have it yanked. But I think ultimately, lesson learned, right? I mean, at the very least, you started, if this was your first book, let's just say, and you started the production of it and then it was removed in the middle of the production, at the very least, you learned how to start formatting your files. You started how to save the different files in, the organization process, the prep process. You've at least learned something in that process, right? Maybe what to look for in the future, or to look out for, or to avoid in the future. You've at least learned something in that process. 17% of you said offer but no listing on Amazon. Again, it could be for a number of reasons. I wouldn't immediately think it's a scam of any kind, but ask questions. Ask to see the manuscript. Ask about, make sure that the names match, that the author is who the person is that's contacting you. Look them up, see if they have a website, look at their social media following, do your due diligence, but that's not always a bad thing, right? Title written by AI, 14% of you. I mean, I think this number is going to grow before it recedes. I'm hoping at some point, like for example, you've got like YouTube and Audible, they're now offering these things too, but they're also designated as such, right? It has to be... It has to be marked as, hey, this is AI, or this, you know what I mean? So I'm hoping that at some point going forward that these will need to be designated as, AI assisted or something like that going forward. We're just not at that point yet. We're still trying to wade through the waters of this wild west, excuse me, of AI, and trying to figure out, the different regulations for different aspects of AI. We're sort of still in the middle of that. So I'm hoping at some point it'll all be sort of smoothed over, but we're just not there yet. So just my best advice is to, good gosh, my best advice is just to keep going and to keep learning what you can learn in the process until this is all sorted out. Just keep a positive mindset, y'all. And knowing what to look for. All right. Now I got to find where I left off. Oh. And it's getting hot in here. Oh, here we go. Donnie says to Tanya, a lot of those that I see, the author is usually paying a solid amount for their book and want a more seasoned narrator. Nothing against us newer people. They just want experience. I mean, it could be it could be any number of reasons. Again, maybe they were burned in the past. Maybe they just want somebody that's more seasoned with their narration style, maybe their file formatting prowess. I mean, it could be a number of things. Hang on. Hold while I turn the air conditioner back on. Because, y'all, it's already 95 degrees. So it's going to get noisy. I apologize, but I'm cooking. Just making sure it's... There we go. It's turning on. Kat says to Paul, I like the idea of audition spreadsheet. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. You should totally do that. I log everything. Tanya says to Donnie, sure, I can understand where they're coming from. It's a significant outlay. Abby Books says, hi, new here, welcome. Just wondering if you have a general idea of when to expect to hear back from a rights holder. I imagine it can vary, but I'm wondering if you have a recommended time frame before reaching out. It's going to be, I mean, you could ask me that question and ask 10 other audiobook producers that same question. You're going to get a varied answer. Authors are people just like us. Some of us are on top of things and don't like things to sit and fester. Some other people, maybe life gets in the way. Maybe they have, a couple of kids that take a lot of time that, have a lot of... It's hard to say. It's hard to say. But I would say that if they have not gotten back to you... Is this for like an audition, or I guess it depends on what it's for, but if you're maybe corresponding with them, or even if you've submitted an audition, it could be same day, it could be within the hour sometimes, it could be a couple of days. Again, if you're just submitting an audition, I mean, that author could have received hundreds of audition submissions. And maybe they feel obligated to go through all of them. Maybe some other authors will just go, okay, here's the first 50. I'm only going through these. Or maybe they just go, okay, I'm going to listen to that one. It's really hard to say. But I would say if a rights holder has not gotten back to you or you haven't gotten a rejection letter, you could reach out to them maybe in a couple of weeks. I'd say a month maybe at most, and say, hey, you never know. It could be the thing that keeps you top of mind. They go, oh, this person's checking in. Maybe, they're really serious about producing this audiobook. I'm going to go find their audition and listen to it. I mean, but I would say a month. I would reach out at the very most. Unless you have like nothing going on, then you can probably poke them a little bit after a week or two. But it's going to be different for all of them. It's a loaded question to answer. Joy is here. Hey, Joy. Good afternoon from sunny Southfield, Michigan. Hello, Joy. Tanya says, by contrast with the snippy author, the one who is paying got the manuscript to me immediately and is being really helpful and approachable. And I find that's usually how it goes. Right? Reading Time with Poppy says, I spend a little time in author forums and they hate AI in their space. Understandable. It may even be more of a nuisance to aspiring authors than VO. No competition. Just makes sense. We'd see a lot in ACX. Yeah, and I would think, as someone writing a book myself, once that accomplishment is done, I would love to call myself an author. Now, if I would never use AI myself for that, because if it's something that I wouldn't be able to call myself an author if that is what happened, if I had a machine write my book for me. That's my view. But of course, other people are going to have different views. Now, I can also see a business owner, because a lot of business owners will have a book to offer for free with a course or something like that. And perhaps they have a basic idea. It's sort of, complementary with their business somehow. It's like a lead magnet, right? So they have an idea and then they stick it into AI to fill it out and to expand on it. I can see that. Like, their main purpose is not to be an author. Their main, of course, it's for a little bit of credibility and things, but the main purpose of it is that it's a lead magnet. So being called an author, being able to call themselves an author isn't like the main goal. But if I wanted to call myself an author, I would not use AI. But of course, everybody's going to have different opinions on that too, right? We all have different opinions on different things. So, but that's how I see it. Tanya says, congratulations, Lisa. Nicole says, I also just had my first audiobook go live. Congratulations. Hang on. I just turned my air conditioner on and just said, no, you're not home. I just turned you on. I'm home. I promise. Technology. I also just had my first audiobook go live. ACX only took 10 business days. I thought that was pretty quick. It is pretty quick. I mean, there was a point where they were getting down to like 7 days. At some points, they're like 30 days. I think it just depends on staffing. Michelle LW means, what did I just say? Michelle LW is here. Good God. Hi, everyone. I've been researching VO for a bit, and I've learned a lot from your videos, Angela. Thank you. Thank you for watching them. I'm glad they helped. I recently started auditioning on ACX, so this topic is very timely. I have that habit, you know. I'm a mind reader. I know what you guys want. I don't really. You guys need to tell me what you want. I just base these on like the questions that I get in maybe the week or two preceding these live chats, just to kind of get a pulse on what everybody wants to know so we can address it. So I'm glad it was timely for you. Rochelle says, hi, Angela and all. Hello. Close to 40 plus auditions, finally got my first offer. Almost had 2, but got caught up on the price and the timing. Bummed. Well, was a well-known author, but it's okay. I mean, again, you guys all know how I look at these things. If it wasn't meant to be for you, then it won't. And also, don't forget to take those 40 auditions and also put them in as samples on your profile. If you're not, you could be potentially missing out on a lot more offers. Because again, keep in mind, 60% of jobs booked on ACX or through ACX are from the audition process. The other 40% are booked with your samples being posted of authors and other people, again, off of ACX, looking for narrators for their project for a different platform through the samples. So I would say when you're auditioning and you really think you nailed it, use that audition as a sample. Post it. I don't think there's a limit to the amount of samples you can have. I've never seen somebody say, well, ACX cut me off on samples, so I had to, I've never heard that. I don't think there is one. So post those samples. Just make them all just a little bit different. Lisa says, thanks everyone. I'm super excited. And yes, Angela, I am celebrating with shopping for a new desk, chair, etc. for my new studio setup in my new house. Well, that's awesome. New gear is always fun. That's awesome. Let's see. Voiced by Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca. Good afternoon from sunny Virginia. Definitely get that manuscript before agreeing to the book, not just for content, but for the level of writing. A well-written book makes all the difference. Yes, it's glorious when it just starts to flow, right? If it's written well and it just jives and it just flows, you're not making a bunch of retakes. It's glorious when that happens. Glorious. Reading Time with Poppy says, you can only have 2 out of the 3, high quality, inexpensive, fast. Once you have 2, the other is not available. Yeah, it reminds me of that meme of the half-drawn horse. Have you seen that? When the client asks you to make it cheaper, it's like half of the image is like a beautifully drawn like horse, like half of a horse, and then It says when the client tells you to make or asks you to make it cheaper, then the other half of the horse is just like a stick figure with a smiley face. I mean, it's true. Quality takes time and investment. Paul says, I've had good rate of success with checking old auditions that were removed maybe 6 months ago and listing titles that never made it to the audiobook. I then try, not always easy, to contact the rights holder with a message along the lines of, if you're still thinking about it, I'm here. I've gained 2 clients that way, 3 books from one, 6 from the other. And thank you for mentioning that, Paul. I think that's a great thing. I think we like to put ourselves in a box because I think, and I was guilty of this too, and sort of until I sort of like thought outside of the box, but it takes a little bit of mindset shift to get there. But when you're first starting your own business, you're still in the employee mindset, right? I'm in this box. I can only do what's in this box. But then when you're starting a business, you have to think like a business owner. There is no box, right? You're wearing all of the hats now. You have the power to ask the questions. You have the power to negotiate what you want. You have the power to do these things because it's your prerogative. It's your business. It's the way that you want to do things. So if you want to reach out to a rights holder when you auditioned 6 months ago and the book still hasn't been produced, you can reach out to that author. You can ask the questions. You can go and do the research. You can go and contact them on their website. You can do all these things. You're not sequestered to this little box of I can't do that. Stop that. That's the employee mindset. If you want to be a business owner, you gotta embrace the CEO mindset, a business owner mindset. You're the boss. You can do what you want. You can do it all. You have all of these. The internet is an amazing, wonderful thing. You have all this information and capability at your fingertips. Use it. Donnie says, same here, Paul. I have ended up being on an author's go-to list for narrator. Beautiful. Rochelle says, I'm looking for your videos on preset settings to save. Need all shortcuts I can get. Also have had offers and auditions where I couldn't find them on Amazon, etc. I skipped them. I wouldn't do that. I would actually, I mean, your prerogative, against business owner, you do what you want to do. But again, I wouldn't skip them. I would go and do research and try to find them. Because if they don't have a book on Amazon and they're reaching out to you to offer the narration of their book, it could be that they want to release everything on the same day. It could be that they don't want their book on Amazon. It could be they don't want their book on Audible. It could be they want to go a completely different direction with their book, with their audiobook. Maybe they want to sell it directly on their website only. Maybe they want to sell their audiobook on a different audiobook distribution platform. Maybe they only want their print copy in Barnes & Noble. We don't know. But I would go and ask the questions and see if you can find the author. See if they have social media talking about this book. I mean, do the due diligence, but just because it's not on Amazon isn't an immediate red flag. Reading Time with Poppy says, gotta kind of push back on the author's presence online. I agree not being able to find them is a red flag, but I am a case of an aspiring author that would have zero online presence if I could swing it. And I get that too. As a screaming introvert myself. You wouldn't believe it because my face is all over YouTube, but I am. But even though my inner introvert would really not like me promoting my book if I finished it, I would still be proud of that. I would still mention it somewhere. Especially if I wanted it to sell well, I would have to promote it, right? And that's really if you're going to be like an indie publisher. But if you're going to publishers, then they're going to push your name out there, right? So either way, you're going to be discoverable one way or the other as an author. I would think. So I would still do my due diligence and see if I can find any information on them. Ask if they have a marketing plan. Something. Masonry Construction says Venture Nest Books has put up hundreds of titles over the past 2 months in just the categories I use. I disregard their listings now. Why is that? Rochelle says, oh, in your video on the files to set up for sections for the books, how to list them. You mean like file organization? Are you asking where to find them or to make them? Please clarify, Rochelle. I haven't had enough coffee yet. Kat says, do you have content about how you did this YouTube channel? I like the setup and how with these live sessions the chat is set up for a few minutes before the hour and that you say what you're talking about for the day. Also, that you wait a minute before you start the live, letting the loud music. Is it loud? Is it really super loud? So I don't miss the first part of what you were saying. I don't think I have any content on it, but I use StreamYard. There's a link down below in the description for, I think, a discount, I want to say, just to try it out. But StreamYard is what I use. Everything that you see is all StreamYard. You can insert an intro to play before you start and then an outro. I made those, and the intro and outro I made on Canva. What else? But this is I've only been using StreamYard now for maybe a year, maybe 2 years at the most. Before StreamYard, I was using OBS, which I just updated and it looks really good. So I might even go back to OBS, but it's a little bit more complicated to set those things up in OBS versus in StreamYard. You just kind of click a button on or off, makes it a lot easier. Thomas says, hello from Pittsburgh. Hello, Thomas. I'm just trying to break into voiceover work. My question is, can you ask for any upfront money before final submission, like 30% upfront, 30% at the 2/3 the point, and then final payment? I'm glad you brought that up, Thomas. If I agree to a per finished hour rate book or a pay for production book, however you want to say it, I tell the authors that I collect 50% upfront. I set the expectation up front with the author. I tell them that they're going to receive a PayPal invoice from me. This is the total amount. This is how much the invoice is going to be for, which is 50%. And then the remainder is due when the revisions are done and they're happy with the final product. That way, if the author does decide they want to wait, they want to cancel, they want to do something, they don't want to move forward with the project at all, then you at least have compensation for your time up until that point. But you don't have to do 50%. You can do 20%, 30%. I mean, that's a negotiation between you and the author. If you want to do halvesies or if you want to do percentages, at the third point, you can do that. If you want to do like 20% to start before you even get the manuscript, then 30% when the 15-minute checkpoint is done. I mean, you can break it down however you want to, but yes, you could totally do that. Again, you're the boss. You make those decisions. You can. Tanya says, my current author made it clear what his budget was, $50 to $100 per finished hour. And I said I'd be willing to drop to the top end of it because I liked the story. He was more than happy that I paid attention. Well, yeah, who wouldn't be, right? If you're invested in something that you wrote, you have someone that's invested in something with you that makes you kind of, makes you feel warm and fuzzy. Kat says, and if you don't already have the content, can that be a future live or is it in premium? Not sure what you mean about premium. You mean like platinum, like my platinum group? I don't have any like pre-recorded content other than my courses on my website. All the platinum stuff is live, basically. We talk live every Thursday for a couple of hours. But I don't have content about the StreamYard stuff or the YouTube channel. I don't think so. But I could. Tanya says to Thomas, I asked for a 30% today from an author who wasn't used to that, and he was happy once I explained why. Now I've got to try cherry fritters. Do it. They're good. They're hella not good for you, but they're good. Jules says, what about getting a personal email saying they chose someone else, but the book is still open for auditions and you haven't gotten an official rejection letter? I guess it just kind of depends on what kind of person you are. Do you re-audition? If you want the book bad enough, I would re-audition. I mean, the only thing that comes to mind is that they're holding the audition. They're holding the listing open for one author or one narrator, excuse me. So it could be that they have their narrator, perhaps someone that they found off platform. Let's just say I'm an author and I have a listing on Amazon, and then I move it to ACX to create an audiobook. I perhaps solicited auditions. I said, okay, I'm opening it up to auditions. They get 5,000 auditions and they go, oh, that's way too much for me. That's information overload. I can't handle that. So then I take the book down. And then I go to my social media. I'm flipping through, and then I found somebody narrating live on TikTok, and they go, oh my God, her voice is amazing. I want to reach out to her. So I reach out to her, and she says, hey, I'm on ACX too. But it's royalty share, so the only way to do that is through ACX. Okay, I'm going to reopen my book for auditions, and I want you sometime today to go in there and audition for it. That way, I have your information, and then we can start moving forward with the royalty share production. But I forget as the author to maybe put that in the notes somewhere for the audition. Just say, this is a listing for such and such, a narrator to audition for. And I mean, that has happened before. That has happened before. So that could be why. But you could re-audition if you wanted to. I mean, as long as it doesn't say in there that this listing is for such and such a narrator only, you could. Donnie says, I have had a handful of authors personally reach out to me thanking me for my audition, but I wasn't what he or she was looking for. I always respond to them, thanking them for reaching out to me. And I would, because that shows your level of professionalism. And you could also not be the right voice for that particular project. But perhaps they're finishing up another book that your voice could be good for. And if you were handling the situation in a professional manner, then they could circle back to you in the future. That has also happened to me. So always handle yourself in a professional manner. Customer service hat is a big one. Kat says to Bears, good customer service might bring work later. Exactly. Eric Grams. Hey, Eric. Hi, Angela and Team Angela. I've been auditioning a lot. Someday I will receive my next offer. Right, Bueller? Yes, keep auditioning and posting those auditions as samples. You are an amazing narrator, Eric. It'll come. But you got to be visible in the right ways, in all the ways. Glowen says, good afternoon all. I'm late, so I have donuts for everyone. No diets today. Donnie says to Kat, exactly. Hasn't happened yet, but consistency is key for all of this. Oh, and hi, Pam. Sean is here. Hey, Sean. I've seen listing with future release dates, so no Amazon listing. Life Unleashed says, yay, I made a live stream. Well, we're glad you're here. Colleen from Cape Cod. Love your wonderful advice. Newbie since Christmas. Auditioned for 160. I've completed 15. Working on 2 with 1 in the queue. Sounds like you're doing well. And welcome to the family. Masonry Construction says, I explained to my author today about the time required. The 2-hour audiobook is the equivalent of a 2-hour feature film. Don't sell yourself short regarding your art. Good stuff deserves its time. Well said. Jazzy Jubilee says, this may seem like a silly question, no such thing. But how do you audition for books that are on the New York Times bestseller list? Is there a way to seek out titles are very popular? Would I need an agent? I would think those books are with publishers, and those publishing houses probably have their own roster of narrators that they're reaching out to. They're not using places like ACX to find those narrators. Those are high ticket projects that are probably won through agents or through the publishing houses doing their thing, searching for narrators, or they have their in-house roster talent. But it is not unheard of to reach out to an author that does not have an audiobook version of their book and reach out to them directly and say, hey, have you thought about creating or producing an audiobook for your book? And then sending them your demo reel. You can do that. Business owner, do what I want. Kat says, oh, and thanks for reposting the live with Dwight. I have to step away. Thanks for answering my question. See you all next time. Bye, Kat. Donnie says, don't worry about your AC, Angela. If you aren't auditioning, etc., be comfy. I have my AC and every fan on when I'm not recording. This is sweaty, sweaty work, even in the winter. Yes. I mean, once summer starts to really, once we start to get into, July, you'll see in social media, voice actors and audiobook narrators recording in, swimsuits with ice packs. I mean, it gets hot in our booths. So just make sure that you're walking around, you're moving around a lot, you're not asphyxiating yourself in your recording space. Take lots of breaks, get lots of air, and try to keep as cool as possible, especially in the summertime. Life Unleashed says you're allowed to post your auditions, no copyright. On ACX, no. If the author has an issue with it, then it's just as easy as hitting the delete button on that sample. Do it. Donnie says, yes, you can post them as samples. I have never had an author ask me to take them down, nor have I. I have never had an author tell me to take down that audition. Never. Sean says you can only pick two. Fast, cheap, quality. Right. Exactly. Rochelle says, I do the research, and if I can't connect everything, even reaching out with them to get more clarification, that's when I skip them. Yeah, if you do your due diligence and it's not lining up, or your spidey senses are just really tingling and you're not getting any kind of responses or not the responses that you think are good, then yeah, I would probably bow out. Donnie says, look them up on Google. Google is your friend. Rochelle says, I will look further into them because it may be possible more offers. Exactly. Rochelle says, and where do you find the videos? My videos? I think you could just go to my channel page and then search, right? I do have playlists. There's voiceover tips, and then there's also audiobook narration. Then there's all these lives. I think, I don't know if there's another way to search other than maybe my name and a topic, perhaps. I'm not sure. But from what I understand, if you just punch in the topic in the search bar, I come up with a lot of that stuff. Thank goodness. The algorithm likes me for the most part. Could always be better. Alexa says, hi, Angela, first time live. Welcome. Long time watching your channel. Pondering to jump into the audiobooks world. Love your channel. Thanks for all your advice and effort. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that more than you know. Thank you so much. Jewel says, Venture Nest Books has a ton of books up looking for narrators. They are all self-help. Of all the books, there is only one rating on Amazon on one of the 30-plus books. This is the one I offered per finished hour. I wonder if it's a new... Is it like a new indie publisher, perhaps? David says, yes, the opening music has been loud, but I missed the music today. Interesting. I wonder if I can adjust it somehow. Yeah, give me feedback, guys. Otherwise, I don't know. Donnie says, don't forget to punch the like button, then share, and then consider joining the Platinum group. It is life-changing. I appreciate that, Donnie. Yes. Come. Join us. Platinum group. Do it. Life Unleashed, big happy face. Jazzy Jubilee says, thanks for your... Of course. Yep. Jules says, I don't know if they are an indie publisher. If they're flooding the ACX space, they could be. Or maybe... I mean, I would hate to say it, but I'm hoping they don't have just like a plethora of AI written books. They just like are spitting them out. I mean, it's a possibility. It's a possibility, especially now, right? Well, you guys, that's about it for me today, I think. Again, if you're watching this in Team Replay, please consider sharing, liking, subscribing, doing all the YouTubey things. I appreciate it. Helps the algorithm. Feeds the algorithm god. If there's something that you want to know more about or talk about as a group like we are today, then please put it in the comments below or send me a message. I read all my comments, the majority of them, I should say. I try to catch all of them. Otherwise, I will be here next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel. Unless you're in my platinum group, then I will see you guys on Thursday night. That's about it. So keep plugging away on ACX. Don't forget to also post your auditions as samples. I'm telling you. I have at least 3 videos here on my channel about how to do that. So go check those out if you need more clarification. But why not? You already did the work. Make it work double for you, right? All right, you guys. I'll see you all next week. Bye.